Hello, team. Welcome to session 2 of the Adaptation Mindset Initiative. I hope everyone's enjoyed this journey of growth so far. Session 2, it's been one I've been struggling with for a few weeks. Reason why there's a delay in getting this recording to you. So thank you for being patient. But I am excited to share what I've learned putting this together. And truly reflecting on how feedback matters, it has been a challenge for me. So I've enlisted one of my favorite people on the planet, my daughter Hannah, to help me and us reflect and relate to what we're learning in this session. Hannah is also a WGU student, so we can also learn from the student perspective with that. So you'll meet her here shortly. Before we jump into session 2, let's take a quick look back at what we covered last time. The focus of session 1 was on understanding the two mindsets. We learned that the fixed mindset sees our abilities as set in stone, and challenges are honestly a threat to reveal limitations. But the growth mindset sees challenges as opportunities for learning and development. So let me say that again. Growth mindset sees challenges and opportunities for learning and development. And honestly, this difference, it changes everything. Then last week, our last session, we also spoke about Dr. Ali Crum, who delivered a powerful message. Stress is not inherently bad. It depends on how you respond to it. So her work showed that when we adopt that stress is enhancing mindset, we actually channel that stress into focus, energy, and improve focus and performance. So it is actually a choice to see this challenge or any stressful situation as part of the meaningful goal and as the journey. So lastly, last session, we talked about the ultimate goal of a growth mindset. And this is important. So the ultimate goal of a growth mindset, it's not just about trying harder, right? Or thinking positive. It's about separating your identity from your performance. Separating your identity from performance. So really think about that. The key is to shift your focus to the process, your effort in that process, and the learning, not the final outcome. That's where this true sustainable growth comes from. So these 3 points we covered in session 1, the growth over fixed mindset, that stress is enhancing mindset, and focusing on the process versus the outcome, those are the foundations that we talked about last time. So now let's build onto them as we move to session 2. In this session, we're taking a deeper dive into practical skills that can profoundly influence our growth mindset and that of others. And it's how we give feedback. Think this is why it was such a struggle is with the feedback, because today our focus is the difference between label-based praise or feedback and effort or process-based feedback. So sometimes people describe this as person praise versus process praise. We'll go a little bit deeper into this. But I was really thinking of how I could reflect on this and give an example of a type that I received some motivation, and I reflected on a time that my manager, Jean, gave me some powerful feedback when I was trying to figure out, what I want to do after I get this master's degree. I love being a mentor. I want to continue to do that, but how can I share what I'm learning and engage in that? And my manager said, don't look for a defined role. He told me to create my own opportunity. Feel free to innovate, share what I'm learning and the failures, and make my own space. And truthfully, that push was exactly what I needed. So thanks, Jane. That's why I'm here today, sharing what I've learned and proving I can create my own space. And I know struggles and mistakes are essential parts of that process. And every time I get nervous or feel stressed as I'm doing this, I'm going to remind myself that the stress and anxiety that I'm feeling is my body's way of preparing to do something great and sharing something of value. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's think about this. When someone succeeds, passes a test, does well in school, what do we say? Maybe we say, oh, you're so smart, or you're a natural at this, or my gosh, you're a genius. You're just so good at taking tests and studying. And that kind of praise, I know it feels positive, right? And I know that it means well, it's well intentioned, But research shows that it can actually backfire. Why is this? Because when we link success to identity labels like being smart, being talented, it sets up a mental trap. If success means being smart, then I guess failure means not being smart. So suddenly mistakes feel like threats and not opportunities to learn. Okay. So people start to avoid those challenges to protect their smart label. So it's real important that we um, encourage people that, mistakes are not threats, right? And they are opportunities to learn. So people that are fearful to mess with that not being smart label, they start to avoid challenges to protect that smart label. And then learning, it turns into a performance test, right? Not actually the process. So I know we've all probably heard students, that have said, "Oh, I've always been so good at this," right? So then they come into a class and they don't pass the test the first time. So they've always been told they're smart, good at school, good at taking tests, and then they don't pass and they want to quit. And they're like, "Ah," and what they think is, if I can't pass this, maybe I'm not smart enough at all, right? That fear can stop them from trying harder problems. So now let's hear directly from my daughter, Hannah. Like many of us, she's experienced how even well intentioned labels and motivation can sometimes create unexpected pressure. Really want you to think about a time that I gave you feedback that was supposed to be motivating, but did the opposite. So I know it may be hard for you to think about this. You have anything in mind?
I think I do. Um, but just like you were saying, it wasn't coming from a place of you trying to make me feel unmotivated. It was you trying to do the exact opposite. So don't hold it against you.
Right.
So, um, I work a full time job at the USO, and I also have several part time jobs that I do as well. So I call my mom. I talk with her a lot about stresses with my schedule. And sometimes, I've always heard my parents and my family and friends say that I'm a very hard worker. But sometimes when I come to anyone with a problem and being like, I'm just really stressed out about my work right now, I just have no time to myself, or contemplating maybe I should take a step back from some of these things. It's like, well, no, you're such a hard worker. Like that can come across as making me maybe less motivated because yes, I am a hard worker, but also a person who has hobbies and
Mm.
things that I like to do, and I don't need to hear that. It's hard for me to hear like, "Oh, I really want to take a break," and instead of saying like, "Yeah, you deserve a break when you work 40,
Mm.
60-hour weeks sometimes," and saying, oh, you need to keep doing it because you're such a hard worker. Well, I can be a hard worker and only work 40 hours a week, you know?
That's a perfect example. We hear you're such a hard worker, and while it feels good initially, we can create this pressure not to rest or to say no because we fear we're tainting that label, that hardworking label. And this is exactly what research shows. Labels can make us avoid risk or even self care to protect that identity. And this insight came from a classic study by Dr. Carol Dweck. So, in one group, they actually took 100 children and they had 100 children complete the same task. One group of the children were praised for their intelligence. They were said, "Oh, you're so smart." The second group was praised for effort. "You worked really hard." And the third group did not receive any praise. So then here comes the next problem. And these children had a choice on which problem they wanted to do. So, do they want to try the easier problems or do they want to try harder problems? So, the smart praise kids, they actually picked easier problems to protect their label. And the effort praise kids, they chose harder problems because they wanted to learn and grow. In other words, the smart group wanted to look smart and the effort group wanted to get smart. So I want to share about how being labeled pushed me away from something I loved, and it was music. Growing up, I was constantly told, I was a natural musician. I didn't really ever have to practice because it came easy to me. And this label, though it was well intentioned, I'm sure, it truly created immense fear of failure. I often faked playing in bands to blend in and avoid making mistakes. Just think of it as like lip syncing for a band, right? For a trumpet player. And every year we had this statewide solo and ensemble contest that I was forced to do. And I would always pick the easiest piece. That way I wouldn't have to work that hard and I probably wouldn't make that many mistakes. This constant pressure, it actually demotivated me, and it killed my passion for music. It wasn't any fun. And honestly, reflecting as we're going through this learning, I see how focusing on that label of being a natural, that fixed mindset, made me view mistakes as weaknesses, and it destroyed my desire to grow. I just stopped trying, just stopped learning, and it's fearful. Yeah, I get very anxious when I think about playing again. So what's the solution? We need to praise the verbs, not the labels. We need to focus on what someone did rather than who they are. For example, instead of hearing, "Oh, you're so talented," say maybe, "I noticed how focused you were during practice today. You were working really hard." Or instead of saying, "You're a natural problem solver," maybe say, "I like how you broke that problem into parts and you stuck with it." So this kind of feedback and motivation, it highlights effort, strategies, and persistent. In this actual process, that's what leads to growth. So imagine a student who didn't pass their first objective assessment, and a mentor could offer, instead of saying, "Oh, I know, sorry you didn't pass that," they could say, "The fact that you stayed calm and managed your time effectively taking this test, it really shows that you had the strategic composure to work hard and pass this. So let's analyze your study approach for this week and adjust your pacing strategy for the next attempt." This type of motivation and feedback, it highlights controllable skills for improvement rather than a fixed trait, right? I think about a member who maybe is struggling with a new task or a change, and they really are having a hard time learning the steps and implementing those into their daily life. So you know, a leader could possibly say to this person, I observed how you broke down this complex change into smaller programs, and I really like that you met with Gina to discuss any of your questions. Let's think about what insights did you gain from working with Gina, and what are you going to do to approach this next part of the change or this next part of the project. So again, this praises their actions and the process, not just their ability. Okay. So let's flip it. Now, has there been a time where I've said something that actually did motivate you? Can you remember a time like that?
Mm. Yes, I just had this in my brain. Um,
Yeah, think a little longer about
I
this one. I
know.
like
No.
it.
What my mom is really good at is always at helping me advocate for myself. It doesn't matter to who. It doesn't matter to if it's she even if she thinks I'm in the wrong, she's always in my corner, always validating my feelings. So I don't know if I have. Tons of situations where this has happened. So I don't know if I can pick out just one, but um, maybe like I struggle with saying no. So uh, she's always helps me figure out how to articulate things because I have kind of a hard time with that sometimes, especially when having to be confrontational or setting boundaries with people. I feel like she's really good in that regard and giving advice and being super encouraging and helping me do that.
Do you feel like it's because I'm encouraging you to focus on the process, right? Like maybe where you are versus like the outcome, right? I mean, I don't
Mhm.
know, because I think just
I have an
is that
idea on this.
okay? Tell me.
Because I think a lot of where my anxiety stems is thinking about how my actions are going to affect the future and not actually living in the present. And I feel like my mom is so grounded, and she really helps me come back to earth and uh, look at my situation where it is. And we can only do what we can do right now. Like we were just talking about this literally today. Um, we're going on a vacation out of the country, and I haven't got my passport yet, and I'm freaking out because we don't know what to do with because I don't have my birth certificate. So she was just like, calm down, we got time, we'll figure it out. But I my mind's already 7 8 months in the future, thinking like I don't have this in time, I'm freaking out. But yeah, she's always the one that grounds me and helps. She was going to do the research, she was going to plan out how we were going to do this, kind of taking a little bit of that weight off of me.
That's fantastic, Hannah. I love how you highlight the power of helping someone focus on the now, those actionable steps in the process, rather than getting overwhelmed by the future outcomes. That encouragement to advocate and to break down a big problem and to stay grounded is all about praising and doing the strategies, the verbs, which builds that confidence. So here's what's really powerful. This approach, it works both after success and failure. When someone struggles, identity praise usually falls silent or turns into judgment or shame. But effort based feedback, it turns that failure into learning. You can ask that person, what did you try? What didn't work? What will you try next? This shifts that story from I'm failing to I'm learning. And that curiosity is the foundation of growth. I know we keep talking about you can do this for somebody else, but you should also do this type of self talk for yourself as you're giving your own self feedback and trying to reflect. What did you try? What didn't work? What are you going to try next? Okay. So, again, the self talk is very, very important. So let's go back to that student who's struggling on a course, okay? And another way that you can give this type of feedback and encouragement and motivation for them as they're getting through this is, I love how you didn't give up on this hard concept. You keep working through it. And I really enjoy like the way that you switched from reading the text and then you attended the course instructor cohort and then you met with the course instructor to clarify your questions. That shows commitment and strategic thinking. So keep that up, and keep using that process and actively engaging with your instructors. See how that praise it's not a fixed talent. It praises the action and the strategies that gives a student the blueprint that they can consistently repeat over time. Again, reflecting what worked, what didn't work. So you're giving them that blueprint to face difficulty because they will again.
I'm sure a lot of you know, the job market. I really struggled post grad finding a job, and my dream jobs always circled around sports, and it is very hard to get an in that industry. I worked very hard, um, and it was hard for me. The rejections were hard for me because I wanted it so bad, and I worked so hard, um, that when a job would open up close to me, I would almost like not want to apply because I didn't want to get the rejection. So like I knew I was hardworking. I didn't want to lose that faith in myself, seeing like my future is so close. My dreams are so close, but if that rejection would just kill me, so I just might as well not apply just in case I don't get it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's common. Have you ever
Mhm.
though received advice that, maybe you did get that rejection? Was there something someone said to you that made you push forward? Tell me a little bit about that.
Let me think. Hmm. Sorry, I gotta think about this one.
No, this is good. Let's think.
Um, Gosh. That was kind of a very stressful time in my life, so I don't go back to that place that often. But gosh,
We can come back to it.
no, I think between my parents, my boyfriend, my friends, everyone just reassuring me like you have done so much, you are so valuable that someone is going to recognize that.
Mm.
And I tried to really just internalize that myself, and when I look back and look at myself now and seeing like where I got, like I it was the right this was the right thing. It was just waiting for me. Um so I can look back at that journey and see like all these people believed in me, um, and that really helped me stay together and push along and get to where I am now. Until I actually got the job and was able to look back at everything that happened to me before that, I was able to be like, huh, that was just what happens. I learned from that. In the moment it was awful, but like I maybe didn't do great in this one interview, but the next interview I used that and applied it and made myself better. So just looking
Mm.
at my past mistakes allowed me to make myself even better, cuz you're not going to learn if you don't try, if you don't make mistakes.
Mm.
Um Making mistakes, there's always going to be a positive that comes out of it. You're going to learn, you're going to better yourself so you can put an even better version of yourself out there the next time. So that's how I see it now when I look back, but in the moment it was really hard to see that.
Thank you, Hannah. What you're describing, it's a perfect example of what it means to truly embrace that growth mindset. I'm so proud. In the moment those rejections felt like failures, the threatening of the hard worker identity, but with time and reflection, you saw them as steps in the process, opportunities to learn and refine your approach. That's the power of focusing on the verbs, what you did do, what you will do next, instead of getting stuck on a label, I failed or not smart. Dr. Carol Dweck's study with the 100 kids also showed that the kids who were praised for effort actually performed better over time. They tackled harder challenges and they solved more problems. And a big surprise in this study is the kids who were praised for being smart were more likely to lie about how well they did, even when they were doing well. This shows that identity praise, it can encourage dishonesty, fear, and avoidance. But here's what's cool. Process praise, it builds honesty, persistence, and real growth. So let's imagine or think about an adult learner who we've met or know that is usually maybe they're referred to as the expert or the go to person in their career. And now they're struggling in a class in this program. That learner probably feels intense pressure to protect this expert label. And admitting a struggle to their mentor probably threatens that core professional identity. So instead of seeking help, they'll often maybe work by themselves and spend hours trying to solve problems alone, or even falsify their progress updates to avoid revealing their knowledge gap. So it's when these individuals maybe are faced with a really difficult challenge and maybe their usual methods don't immediately work, that pressure to uphold that label, it can be intense. So instead of openly admitting they're stumped, they're just going to do it alone and it's going to take them longer. It's going to avoid the challenge, or maybe they're, just going to do something that looks good. So it's real important that they learn and we learn how to make sure we give the proper effort based feedback to help them see and celebrate the process versus just the outcome. Why does this matter? This research, it came out when most believed that intelligence was fixed. Today, neuroscience shows us that the brain is adaptable. It can change, it can grow. We can develop skills through effort and learning. Our feedback should reflect this truth and help people see that their abilities aren't fixed labels. They're just potentials waiting to be developed. So here's your challenge this week. Let's be intentional with our language, whether with our colleagues, our students, or yourself. Let's focus on verbs, not labels. When giving feedback, let's use intentional language. Let's praise effort and point out some strategies where yourself or others have shown persistence in the past. And let's practice this daily. All right. Um, to wrap this up,
Like, I think back to school, like when I was at school and when I lived with my friends in my college dorm in my apartments, um, they would come to me and talk. We would talk all about like, oh, they have exams coming up, they have big assignments. My label based praise would always be something along the lines of like, you're so smart, you'll get through it. Like that's thinking back on it, I was trying to be like, oh, thinking that's encouraging, but that doesn't, now that I know what I know, that wasn't really helpful to them in that moment. Maybe they just wanted someone to listen and to vent. And I wasn't taking the test, so me saying that they're gonna be fine, like that's not, that maybe wasn't really that helpful to them.
that's great insight. How
Yeah,
could you have reworded it though to make it more of the process based praise?
I could say I know, I can see all the work you've put in throughout the semester. You study every night. You don't go out sometimes because you stay home studying, and just saying like, I see the progress you're making. I know you're going to do great because you worked so hard to get to this point. You've just got to like believe in yourself and finish the job.
Mm, that's excellent, Hannah. You perfectly demonstrated how to shift from you were smart, a label, to I see your hard work, your studying, your effort. There's the verbs and the process. It makes the feedback more actionable and truly encouraging. So, again, right now, call to action. I really encourage you to pause and let's think about what's one label based praise you hear or say often. And how can you reframe this process praise this week? I think for me, as I reflect through this, I tell people that they can do hard things. But what I plan to do is to go back and show them times when they have done hard things. So give them concrete evidence that they've done hard things versus just saying the words. So that's what I'm going to put into practice this week. Feedback is more important than words. It's a mirror we hold up to others. What they see shapes what they believe about themselves. Let's be the people who help others see not just what they are, but what they're capable of becoming. Thank you again for going on this journey of growth with us. Be sure to share the call recordings with students where you show that growth mindset. And don't forget to celebrate each other's growth and impact by giving those shout outs in the Graduate Gurus team. I appreciate each and every single one of you. And if you have any feedback for us on how we can make this more impactful, please don't hesitate to reach out to your Adaptation Initiative team on this slide. And we're all growing together. So let's keep growing and let's do this. High five.